Hello, everyone. Well, there's a threat of severe storms both this evening and Friday evening in Nebraska, but the threat is certainly not going to be equal across the state for both nights. So let's break down when and where the storms are going to be most likely. Notice that I did say this evening and tomorrow evening because during the day, not a lot is going to be going on today. 8 a.m. this morning, a few showers out there, mainly in the central part of the state, but not much. It's much more likely you're going to have a dry morning commute than encounter rain, but just want to mention in the central part of the state the possibility of encountering a light shower. And really, I think that's mainly where the rain is going to hang out throughout the day, though I can't completely rule out a shower in the far western or far eastern part of the state. The best chance of seeing some isolated showers throughout the day today is going to be in central Nebraska. As far as winds go today, I'm going to call it a breezy day. No matter where you are in the state, we're looking at gusts in that 20 to 30 mile per hour range. Let's talk about high temperatures this afternoon. It looks a little bit cooler in the eastern and western part of the state, where we're going to be talking about temperatures that may only reach the low to mid 70s. But in the central part of the state, where we talked about that best chance of rain, I do think we're talking upper 70s to low 80s out there. So pretty warm overall. It's really during the evening hours where I'm concerned about storms popping up. Now, technically, even in eastern Nebraska, I can't rule out a severe weather threat. That said, I don't think there's going to be much going on in the eastern part of the state. We're definitely looking at isolated storms popping up. So there's certainly going to be some people that stay dry, but any storms that pop up could be severe. What I'm more concerned about is actually in the western part of the state. That's where the better chance of storms is going to be. And I think the severe threat begins about 9 o'clock this evening, and it will start in the far western part of it. So Scotts Bluff, your best chance of seeing storms probably about 9 o'clock. And notice how it's looking stormier in the west. Notice how over much of central and eastern Nebraska, not much going on once we jump ahead now to 1 a.m. So isolated activity in the central and eastern part of the state, but scattered activity in the western part of the state. So that's why we're more concerned about severe weather in the western part of the state for this evening. Again, even in the western part of the state, it's more likely going to be just heavy rain and lightning, but we've got to watch out for some hail and some strong wind gusts. Now, that activity in the west is going to push to the east, but by the time it gets into the central part of the state, very early tomorrow morning, it's probably going to be mostly showers or just weak thunderstorms. The severe threat will be over, and that's where the best chance of rain is going to be tomorrow. I noticed more rain tomorrow morning than this morning. We'll call it scattered showers for the central part of the state, but in the far western, far eastern part of the state, probably going to be a dry morning commute. Now, I'm going to jump ahead through a lot of time, but the story through the day tomorrow is still going to be isolated showers, maybe a couple of weak thunderstorms. But the time period that I'm concerned about is about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, so very late afternoon, early evening hours. That's when the next severe threat will begin. And I do think it's a greater severe threat, and it's going to be for the central and eastern part of the state, not for the western part of the state. Quickly about temperatures tomorrow, everybody going to be a little bit cooler because a cold front is going to be sweeping across the state. So notice temperatures across the board not as warm as today. Also, the winds going up for tomorrow. Tomorrow we're looking at wind gusts in that 30 to 40 mile per hour range, so got to call it a windy day. But let's focus in on the storms now. Again, starting 6 o'clock, but notice how activity really ramps up once we get to about 9 o'clock in the evening, particularly in the central part of the state, but this is going to be shifting to the east as we go through Friday night. So as we get to midnight, notice how that activity transitioning to the north and east. Notice it may take a while for the storms to get to places like Lincoln and Omaha. It may not be until pretty late Friday night that activity may very well fire up in the central part of the state and then spread to the east as we go through the night. And the earlier the storms get to you, the greater the severe threat. The later they get to you, the reduced amount of severe threat. So the later in the night we go, the less the threat will go down. And I do think by the time we get to 3 a.m., yeah, there's still going to be a lot of scattered showers in the central and eastern part of the state, but there are not going to be any more storms, and the severe threat will be over. And notice those temperatures coming down on the cool side of the cold front. So for this evening, notice there is a chance of severe storms just about everywhere in the state. It does include Lincoln, Beatrice, not quite Omaha. You're not under that marginal risk. But central and eastern part of the state, as I showed you in that model, we're talking about isolated storms. It's not even a guarantee you're going to see rain this evening, but it is pretty likely you're going to see rain in the western part of the state. So that's why I'm most concerned from Scottsbluff to North Platte. That's where the scattered storms are going to be this evening. Now, even there, between Scottsbluff and North Platte, it's still more likely you're just going to see heavy rain and lightning. But can't rule out some wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour and maybe, in a worst case scenario, up to quarter-size hail. Technically, it's possible anywhere in the state, but definitely looks most likely between Scottsbluff and North Platte. And so for the central and eastern part of the state, definitely more worried about tomorrow night. And if we had to pick the area with the greatest threat right now, it's looking like Beatrice. I will say probably the greatest threat is down in Kansas, but I'm not going to rule out the threat possibly spreading into Nebraska as well. And that's why we're under most of the central and eastern part of the state. That slight risk, that level 2 out of 5. And tomorrow, again, there's going to be more storms around in general than what we're going to be seeing tonight. And I do think the storms could be even stronger. So, unfortunately, for tomorrow evening, I'm not ruling out a couple storms, because what we're especially going to see in the early evening is the potential for some supercell storms to develop. And if you get a supercell storm, that could produce up to golf ball size hail. That could produce up to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. And unfortunately, can't rule out a couple EF0 or EF1 tornadoes. So there's still time for where the greatest threat is going to be tomorrow and the exact timing of this greatest threat to change. So look for an update on all of this tomorrow.